for some reason, even Christians like to invoke karma. I'm not sure why, right? But the idea is that a miracle is this benefit, right? This value add, this protection, something about God's favoring us, right? And doing something to help us. So you might think of like, yeah, any close to death situation that someone narrowly escapes, right? But again, no violation of a law occurred, right? And so there are, of course, other sides of this that we're going to talk about, the negative things, right? What if the bad stuff that happens is God intervention too? We're going to get to that, right? So like when a tree falls on a car, right? And that car just happened to be full of a family that just came from church. Like, is that is God saying something? Did God choose to drop the tree on that particular vehicle? Was that not a miracle, right? As opposed to the other car, right? So what do we make of the bad things, the evil things? We will get to those, right? That's next week. That's the problem of evil. But this week we're focusing on those things that are typically seen as some bestowal of God's love, right? And protection, right, of people. So intervening on our behalf, right, in some sort of positive way. And so in this case, a lot of times you get what people call medical miracles, right? Things that maybe science cannot explain, right, tend to be thrown into what we might consider to be weak notions of the miraculous. Again, it's not that it's violated a law of nature, right? Especially if it's happened enough, right? A violation of a law of nature by its very essence should be rare, right? That's the whole point, is that laws of nature are about patterns. So if the law is getting violated all the time, then we might as well rewrite the law. The law is inaccurate, right? So the idea is that these things are supposed to be rare. So it's things when people say like someone just, they recovered and the chances were really bad, right? They had almost no chance of recovering, but they did. They haven't violated a law of nature. It's just that the odds were against them, right? It was just this extremely unlikely thing. Okay, so different senses of the word miraculous. Which ones are philosophers going to be concerned with? The weak sense or the strong sense? We're already dealing with inductive reasoning here, right? So weak miracles are going to provide little to no inductive support, right, for the existence of God. So only strong claims of miracles, right, are going to be considered here as potential evidence for God's existence. And again, only insofar as God's existence is the best explanation for those things. Okay, good. So what we have this week then are a number of readings, right? So just to introduce again this notion of miracles and how we're understanding them, you're going to see arguments for miracles, primarily from Richard Swinburne. He's the big philosopher of religion currently. I think he's still alive. Who I've actually met him. He's a very tall, gangly man. It's really funny because he goes rock climbing with other philosophers who are atheists. I'm sorry, I love nerd gossip. Like, how people like fangirl out like about celebrities when I hear weird things about philosophers. It makes them more real, But like he goes rock climbing with this really well-known atheist philosopher, and they have a rule that as soon as they get to the rocks, they don't talk about God anymore. Right, so it's possible we can be friends with right people who disagree with us, even if we've built our whole careers on that disagreement. But so Swinburne is going to be giving some really compelling, what are currently considered the most compelling, right, arguments based on inference to the best explanation, right? So he's going to give you some hypothetical scenarios, right? How can we actually rationally arrive at the conclusion that God is the best explanation, right? How can we eliminate all the other possibilities? Okay, then we're going to look at some arguments against miracles in two different senses. One is from Christine Overall. She's going to say that even if miracles occur, they don't count as evidence against or for God, right? And it's basically because of that thing I just said about miracles supposedly being very rare, right? The idea is that if all of these things that are claimed to be miracles are actually miracles, then they're not really that rare. So they don't really count as evidence for God. She's got some other compelling stuff in there. We'll go through that some more on Thursday. And Hume is going to be the big critique against the argument from miracles. And his critique, I think, is really interesting because it rests on two components. One is a rule of rationality, right? About proportioning. Hi, Cece. I know I'm typing. Are you going to join us? Say hello. This is Cece. Hello. You run away now. Run away. All right. Proportioning our beliefs to the evidence, right? And so for Hume, what that's going to mean is that if you see something you think is a miracle, you should compare that belief to all of your other beliefs, right? All the other experiences you've had. And of course, the idea is that the majority of your experiences are of not miracles, right? And so that should give us reason to doubt our experience of the miraculous, right? So for him, it's about proportioning our beliefs to evidence, but he also invokes this really interesting thing if you're a psychology major. If this might be the thing that is interesting to you. I forget the Latin word. I meant to look it up again, but the translation for this Latin word in the text is disease of the ears. So Hume says that the reason that people believe in miracles is because we have this disease of the ears. We love crazy stories. The crazier, the better, right? The least likely, the better, right? We don't want to hear about the mundane, the everyday, right? So he thinks there's a cognitive psychological element, right, to this belief as well.